Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us for the second day of the HS Awareness Week virtual summit. It's so great to share this space with you again. I am so incredibly excited about this conversation that we have today. And I'm just really grateful that we're able to do this for the third year. Yesterday, I was talking about how this has been just a labor of love that started in the beginning of the pandemic. And honestly, I did not think that it would grow in the ways that it has, but I'm so grateful for it because, I saw a need in the community and then other people were telling me that they needed things too. So here we are with one of our summits for the third year. And once again, we have so much support from the community. So thank you so much for joining us because you could be anywhere right now and you're right here with us sharing space. And I promise you, you're going to gain so much from this conversation today. I absolutely love our sponsors. They always grow every single year. And so this year is no different. We have new sponsors and some old sponsors that always support us. And I want to first give a shout out to those sponsors. I want to give a big shout out to the sponsors that helped to make this happen, this whole summit happen. Thank you, Designs by Muriel, hsconnect.org, Tanya Griffin Life and Wellness Center, Hydraware, Cleanse Skincare, My Magic Healer, the HS Foundation, 100-page journals, and Dermaleave. Thank you so much for your support for our summit again this year. And like I said, we have some new sponsors and some old sponsors. Now we're going to get into an introduction of our panelists today. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. I'm going to let Sarah give her introduction, but she is an herbalist and she runs a collective that helps people of color get into herbalism. And there's so much more that she does, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. Thank you so much, and welcome to the HS Awareness Week for My Gold Lining.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you. And, when I was called by Jasmine to do this for this summit, I thought, it's really a special gift because my practice in herbalism has always been in oils and external remedies. So it really was a beautiful match. And so I'm just so happy to be here. And I've spent a lot of time researching and crafting what I'm teaching you today, a special made just for you. So I hope that you all enjoy it. And as Jasmine mentioned before, I'm not an expert on this particular condition. However, I'm so pleased to be here and to have spent about 2 months looking into the treatments and the herbs and how to better serve you all today. So I'm going to share my screen and is that coming through okay? Okay, great. There we go. And definitely to tell you more about me, I am a queer Southerner based in Asheville, North Carolina currently. And I love to say y'all. So I am also Latina, was raised in North Carolina, born in Bogota, Colombia. And as a one and a half generation immigrant, my people are European and also Colombian. We are survivors. So, there's been most of my life, right? Overcoming and learning more, overcoming traumas and being like present with what it means to overcome and break intergenerational traumas, as well as, in relationship with my family and doing that work. And so my experience comes a lot from my own healing journey. And so as Jasmine mentioned, I'm the co-founder of Off Lord Art Herb Collective, which is a collective of folks. I like to say that I have wings in Kentucky, North Carolina, and in Phoenix. So our collective is based in all of those places. And our work is about getting herbal care kits out to people who need them most and distributing herbs to folks, as well as helping other people who want to learn about herbs get involved with it, learn how to grow, learn how to make things. So our original founding group was out of Louisville, Kentucky, and then now I'm based in Asheville, North Carolina, and we also have a little hub in Phoenix, Arizona. So I'm also an educator, a PhD student, getting a degree in education, almost done, hopefully by the end of this year. And so I love teaching. So anytime I'm called to do it, I'm like, this is it, I'm here. In a different type of setting, right? I teach college level students or work in the college setting with young folks that are, you know, learning how to adapt to the college world. And so do a lot of programmatic functions inside of the college, university settings. I'm also a community organizer. So what it means to get the resources, to get the goods, to like win, right? So much of our people and so many of what we're living in today, it requires a whole lot of mobilization of goods. And especially with our collective and then the political organizing I do, you know, it takes connection and getting to know folks and being on the ground with people. And I also do consulting. So I work with different groups around their equity and engagement and education practices. And so that's a little bit about me. And I'm excited to learn more about you. I know we're not live with each other, which is a little bit different for me. So bear with me as we do the chat, but so excited to meet you all and to be here. And so, you know, I know we've all come from busy days, and for some of us, we're ready to go to bed. Some of us, it's dinner time or a little past dinner time, long days. So I wanted to just give us a moment to take a few seconds to just breathe and center and ground ourselves. I love this quote because, you know, this book, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, is such a beautiful book. And I highly recommend it for anyone that's interested in gathering a new relationship with nature and the earth and plant medicine. But what Robin says is that in some native languages, the term for plants translates to those who take care of us. And it is so true, you know, nature and the way that plants hold us and the messages that they bring us when you take the time to tune in is just so beautiful. So I want to thank, you know, all of the teachers and the people and the ancestors and the folks who brought us here and who have taught me what I know, as well as that honor, right? That part of you and inside of you, because you also have the medicine that you need to heal yourself. And so just want to honor all of that, our own wisdom inside of us as well. So just take a second to close your eyes if you're comfortable, or lower your gaze, look at something that maybe brings you a lot of joy. And I'm going to ask you to take some deep breaths. So we're going to deep breathe through our nose and exhale through our mouth. Now you can repeat. And take a second to notice the air and the sounds in your surroundings. So there's birds chirping, or what does it sound like where you're at? And how does the air feel? It touches your skin. Is it hot or cold? Or just take a moment to be with your body. And thank you for being the beautiful people that you are. And for coming here tonight and being open to these lessons. We'll take one more breath and then we'll come back into the space. Deep breath in and exhale. Yeah, I like Jasmine's moving your neck. Yes, you feel like you need to shake your body or turn or do some neck rolls. Yes, the hands. We hold so much in our bodies, right? It's so good to just release it as we ground ourselves and get ready to learn together. So, oh man, I'd love to learn a little more about y'all. And if you don't mind telling me in the chat, any names, your name or pronouns. I can actually see your name in the chat, but your pronouns, and I'd love to know how you're preserving yourself in your work and healing at this time. So I'll give you an example. Well, two things. I take naps. I love naps, and I try to nap 30 minutes to an hour a day because it just centers me, and then I can move on to the next part of my evening. And because I'm writing and researching, I need a lot of like brain space, right? So I work, break, nap, write. But the other thing I do is I also have been drinking teas, and I'm making a blend right now that's lemongrass, mint, and chamomile, partially because I'm having to take a steroid for a poison ivy outbreak. And if you know, steroids kind of give you, heart palpitations. They make you kind of excited and give you a lot of energy. So I'm taking these herbs to try to offset the side effects of the steroids. So two things I'm doing, but would love to hear what others have going on. If you'd like to just share in the chat. Antonia's sharing about lemon, ginger, and turmeric tea and loving mint. Anyone else want to share?
Also, I wanted to say, make sure that when you enter into the chat, that it goes to panelists and attendees, because if it just comes to us, then only we see it. Everyone else won't be able to see it. But thank you. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Playing music, yes. Different topicals for the HS. Yeah, the steroids daily. Taking time for this session, sleep routine. Lovely, thank you. Morning meditations, I love that. Time outside. Love it. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. It helps to center us and bring us into the space, and for me to hear your voice too, which is so important in the teaching process. So a little bit of my journey with plant medicine, and this is, yeah, thank you, Shanna, for sharing as well, doing yoga, and especially when you have flares. So my journey with plant medicine, and I think part of this is to understand that, like, it's not like I'm not a clinical herbalist. I work with lots of clinical herbalists, and I have them as consultants. But the work that I've done has been really folk-based. So it's what my mom taught me. It's what my friends have taught me. It's what we cook in the kitchen. It's, very culturally based as well. So any culture that you come from and your background and your ancestry has used herbs and has used plant medicine. So following that lineage is really important. And I love that, to just make it sort of, sometimes people maybe don't feel as open to be able to try things because they feel like, oh, I'm not trained in that or whatever, but you can get a book, right? And you can take classes like this and feel free to experiment. You're not going to mess anything up, right? So, the other piece about my journey, particularly with plant medicine, is, as I mentioned before, it's very much based in ancestral practices, and also that wisdom, right? That I can trust what my ancestors, even though I might not have known them, what they're bringing forward to us in this healing, as well as using the medicine, the plants themselves. And then, you know, this relationship with nature. So getting out to take walks, you know, I have plants a lot talk to me. So they'll, you know, I'll see chickweed or dandelion or violet or growing in the springtime. And it's like, hey, Sarah, how are you? And it really wants to talk and it attracts me to it. And so I, you know, take some time to be in nature, slowing down enough, right, to be, you know, I'm a very hard worker. I have, you know, tight agendas and I'm very busy. And so I have to remind myself to slow down and be in spirit time to receive those messages. And I think it's important to say all of this because it's important that as you do practice medicine and herbal medicine, that you also take that practice to just like, you know, if you do it rushed, you might make mistakes, right? If you try to go out and forage something and you don't know exactly what it is and you're rushed to find it, you might pick the wrong plant. So, you know, again, it's like just slowing down and take your time. And as a reflection practice, which we don't have time for, I always love to talk about what is that first memory that you have of using herbs, flowers, or plants in your life? And so many people give great examples, and I'd love it if you have some to throw in the chat, but might be a soup, right? An herb that you make and that you throw into a soup and that your family used, or your grandmother, you know, you remember the grapes or the certain foods, right, that that do act as plant medicine as well, that like heal our bodies, right? What you eat, right, totally can affect how your body reacts. And especially with HS, there's a lot of internal, as Jasmine mentioned earlier, a lot of things that you want to be careful of, right? Sugars and yeast and things like that. And right, so all of those memories are just important to ground ourselves in and take time with. So herbalism uses, right, herbs to help discomforts like in your physical body, right? So you could have a stomach pain and, you know, drink some mint tea and it helps ease your stomach. Or you could have a headache and put mint oil, not directly oil. You never want to put direct essential oil on your skin because it's a little, it can hurt, you can burn you. But you can use like a compress on your temples to help a headache, you know. There's so many uses. And so they help you with these physical ailments. And you could look like, in our case with the HS, right, like rashes or inflammation, you know, indigestion or nausea, improving sleep, which someone mentioned before. I love so many herbs. There's so many herbs. Lemon balm for calming the nervous system. And so, you know, you have these like physical ailments that herbs can help. There's also a really deep spiritual and energetic medicine that also happens with herbalism. And there's a lot of ways to get it, right? So you by you growing the own plant and you putting your energy in it, right? Like it definitely creates like your connection to the plant. And then if you dry it and you feed your family with it, or you give it to your kids, you know, it's the medicine is actually so much stronger when it's grown by us. So that's just one example of a way that there's a spiritual and energetic connection in the herb that's actually there to support us. And some of that could look like protection, warding fears, inviting abundance, you know. Herbs are used in all kinds of spiritual practices and rituals across all kinds of cultures. You know, you have, you know, the Catholic and Christian traditions using frankincense and myrrh. And so there's so many things and so many overlaps, right? Because of immigration and diasporic people and so much in interrelated ways in which herbal medicine traveled, actually literally traveled across all of our, you know, areas. So there's a lot of plants too that you'll find in the Caribbean and in Latin America and in Mexican culture. So it's like, it's beautiful to watch. And so it's actually a story of the plant, right? Like we cross borders, but we take our medicine with us. Literally, we took our medicine with us when we came or were forced to come, right? So just, you know, paying attention to the spiritual and energetic medicine. All right, so get ready because we're going to go into our heads a little bit. I brought you into your heart and into your body. little bit of story. And now we're going to talk a little bit about what is it all? Okay. And I'm hoping what can happen is y'all can get an access to this slide deck, because there's links on this slide deck to the things I'm going to be describing for you. So for example, a salve, and these are words that I'm going to be using throughout the demonstration. So I just want you to be familiar with them. So a salve is an ointment that's made to soothe the skin and your lips from itches, rashes, soreness, etc. And this is an example of what a salve might look like. And they're basically made by cooking infused oil with beeswax. And I give you some actual links to descriptions and videos on how to make a salve, but I'm going to also show you today. A sitz bath is the soaking of your rectal area in a bath of warm water with herbs or any other home remedies. There's a lot of things that people make sitz baths out of. And tonight I made one for you as well. And I actually have a recipe for you. But these are a blend of about 10 different herbs that you can put in a sitz bath and sit in. And so you would just soak your herb in a muslin bag and place in a bath. A poultice is a mixture of plant material with water and flour that you blend, and you can apply it directly to a sore. Bandage it, keep it on there for 30 minutes, wash it off, and then put another bandage on. And you can actually put honey on top of sores to help like make it feel better again, and then wrap it. So, you know, if you have a care kit or something that you travel with, you can grind up the herbs and take like yarrow with you, and that actually helps stop bleeding. And so I give you some examples again of how to make a poultice on your own. Teas are, everyone's probably so familiar with teas, but it basically pulls the medicinal properties of the herbs through hot water. And you can make teas, can be made into compresses that you soak. You could soak a washcloth in a compress in the water, the strained water, put it on any parts of your body. You can make like infusions that actually you soak for a longer amount of time, and the herb potency is stronger, and then put that into your bath, the actual tea blend in your bath. So teas you can drink, but you can totally use externally as well. So foot soaks are also a great way to take herbs, and if you don't have access to a bathtub. And then I also give you some ideas there on some ways to make teas. And then the infused oil, which I'm going to show you how to do tonight, is for external use and helps with skin and wound healing. And so how I do it, my practice of making infused oils is to infuse oil for 28 days or more. And you can also slow cook oil to make it, to do it faster if you'd like. So some herbs for external use, I've tried to cover the gamut here. There's about 20 herbs on this list. Just want to give you some ideas on what all you can use. So violets bloom in the summertime. I mean, the early spring. They're the little purple flowers on the ground with the grass. It usually grows with the dandelion and the plantain. So many herbs are growing in your house probably already. Now, if you don't use pesticides, you can harvest them and use them directly into your medicine. But violets are great for inflammation, help with throbbing pain, work great on stings and bug bites. And what I did was pull, properties there. There are whole books you can get on each one of these herbs that'll explain so much more. As an herbalist, personally, I like to journey with about 5 to 10 herbs. I pick my 5 to 10 that I really need, and I journey with them. I really get to know them. I bathe in them. I grow them. So, you can choose 2 or 3 of these and play with it. So don't feel too overwhelmed. Red clover also grows at this time of year. Very abundant in this part of the country on the northeast or southeast. It's the little red clover, well, kind of purpley clover. And that's great for anti-inflammatory and soothes the skin. Yarrow, like I mentioned before, if boils are bloody, you can use it to stop the bleeding, and it can be made directly into a powder and applied directly to your boils. There's also shepherd's purse, can be combined with yarrow for poultice. as well as a great herb to do in the poultices. Your dandelion leaf also grows everywhere and good for inflammation. Your St. John's wort is can be made into an infused oil for pain. Chamomile is so lovely to drink. I love drinking chamomile. It's one of my favorites, but it also helps calm, right? Calms you and helps with that inflammation and itch relief. You've got red raspberry leaf, really high in vitamin E and C, and helps soothe the skin. And that's the red raspberry that's actually growing on your red raspberry. So if you grow red raspberries, you can take the leaves of them, and that's medicinal. Chickweed is also a weed, grows a lot of places on the side of the road, but it's also amazing for that rash and that itchy skin. Arnica is amazing as a flower, beautiful to use to help with bruising. So if you get lots of bruising on your skin, it's a great bruise reducer. Plantain, awesome for burns, anti-inflammatory, and will help you with scarring. Calendula calms your redness and inflammation. Tea tree oil, you could use tea tree oil and grapeseed oil are two oils that I think are highly recommended to have on hand in your care kit or in your first aid kit. Again, with oils, try not to apply them directly to the skin. Always use a carrier oil. So you can take like an almond oil or an olive oil or jojoba oil and mix it with the essential oil and then apply it or put it in your bath. But tea tree is antibacterial. So the salve that I'm making for you all, I didn't soak it in the herb, but I will add it when I make the salve. And I always include rose. Here's the thing. Rose is this herb that I'm just playing with a lot lately. I drink it, I bathe in it. But it just is that love yourself more flower. Like I love me and I just want to be reminded to love myself more. And so here's an example of some rose and it just smells so lovely. So I always put rose in the external use herbs recipes. Here's your sitz bath recipe. I made it for you. However, I didn't have myrrh. I couldn't find myrrh. And so here's your thing, right? You might be like, man, where do I get all these herbs? This is a big list. What do I do? I've got it for you. So at the end of the session, you can see I can mail, have an option for you to be able to get some of these, or you can get, some chickweed, chamomile, even if you just got 5 of the herbs. It doesn't have to be all of it. But what I do, as I mentioned, I work with clinical herbalists very much in partnership closely, especially around contraindicators for any kind of medicine that you may be taking. And if the herb has a contraindicator, if you're using it for external, it's likely that you're not going to have, it's more when you're taking like tinctures, strong teas, that you might want to work with a clinical herbalist. But 13 Moons Apothecary and Michelle Ganters, who I work with, and I'll have her contact information for you. And this is her recipe. So it's got all of this in it except for myrrh. And the idea is that you place it into a muslin bag or a cheesecloth and, draw your bath nice and hot and put this in there and, sit by the waist down and give yourself, a nice 15-minute bath and then, discard the herbs back into the earth. And, you can do that every day, if you're having a flare up. And you can buy herbs from a lot of different companies, sell them online. And I can give you those kinds of ideas if you need support on where to buy, purchase things. I also carry a lot of dried herbs that I could send you in the mail. And your local co-ops, cooperative groceries might have some of those herbs as well. So I'm going to go into a little demonstration about how to do it. What we're going to start with is we're making an herbal oil infusion. All right. And you can see some examples here on the screen. And we're going to start. I'm going to make you all the recipe that I've made special for HS in a salve. So get a mason jar. If you want to make just a personal amount, you can use the smaller jars and just use a smaller amount of herb. Just use equal parts of every herb. And I give you a recipe after this, so you don't have to worry about taking too many notes unless you like to be a note taker. So in this case, I'm going to try, I think I'm going to be able to do about a half a cup. The idea is that you fill it to the under the where the ring goes for the lid. You fill it up to about there. So you want to use your jar about this, fill it up to about here. I'm using a 1/2 cup measurer, equal parts of every herb. So we're going to do rose, and then we're going to do chamomile. And this smells so delicious and sweet, just like the rose. For this recipe, I'm using Korean mint, which is a new herb that I've just been introduced to. Like normal mint, but it has a anise flavor, so you can drink this as well. But for the salve, it's also really good because it acts as a antimicrobial. So it helps to kill bacteria and stuff. This is St. John's wort for pain. So we're getting there. This is calendula, and the calendula flowers, a lot of times you'll find it when you buy it, you'll find little flowers in there and they have seeds in it. So you can take these and plant them in your garden. But the calendula smells so good. It's a beautiful flower to grow. So there's your calendula. Almost there, almost filling it. The last one we're using is yarrow. This is just so good and soothing. Again, stops bleeding, but that you have to make the poultice out of in the powder. But good. So I'm a little bit over, but it's okay. The idea is that you have it, pretty full with the dried herbs. You can use fresh herb as well. Just be careful in using fresh herb because it can mold. So you want to be sure that that you're, I personally use dried herbs for the salves. I just feel safer. But you can use fresh herb. And then I'm using olive oil. The reason why we talked about this earlier is that it's cheaper. Your jojoba oils and your coconut oils and some of those can cost a lot more. And because we're using so much oil, it's better to just cost less. So all your herbs are here and you just slow pour and it'll start to sink down. And you can also take a stick or a spoon, to help stir it up. Cover it with a lid and take it a little bit so that the herbs get nice and soaked up. And keep adding, keep adding, keep adding. It's doing pretty good. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll let this sit for 28 days. What I like to do is come back to it. You can do up to 4 to 6 weeks as well. I do the 28 days because of the moon cycle. I like to do herbal medicine again with the energetics and to take good care. I'm just continuing to fill it up as it, and you see it kind of bubbles. And so I'll take it every day and shake it, and I store it in a dry, cool place, somewhere with not too much direct sunlight. And basically in the end, this was the other one I made for you all the other day. So this is about 5 days in. And this is your infused oil. And so let me go back to share screen real quick. Okay. This is your herbal infusion, and I give you the example here, the recipe. To make the salve, after this oil is infused, you're going to strain the oil and the herbs with cheesecloth. That's basically just separating it. So you leave it for the 4 to 6 weeks or the 28 days, shake it every day, give it a little love, strain it, and then you have the oil. Now the oil is going to be basically like your olive oil, and it's going to have a color to it. And it's going to have sediment, a little bit of like a sediment. That's okay. That's all okay, because that's, the herbs are basically being extracted from the, in the oil. Now, you can take that oil and just use that oil. So if you want to make a plantain oil, you want to make a calendula oil, you want to make just a St. John's wort oil, you can do that. Or you can make these nice blends, right, that are blended just to kind of help support specifically HS. You can apply that oil directly to the skin. Now, some people, so let me, I think I can just stop share. I'll stop share. And then I just want you to know that if you want any of the salve or the sitz bath care kits, I've got them created for you, and they'll be available by July 1st to mail out. So you can email me, and we can do Venmo or, whatever to figure out how that payment works. And then have here also contact information for a clinical herbalist if you need that, as well as myself for, support around getting supplies or questions. We'd love to work with you. And I want to show you one more thing, which is the consistency of salve. So I'm sure that you all have used salves in the past. And so there's a lot of different, consistencies that you can get. So this, if you can see, my finger goes in pretty easy. It's a thinner consistency, a little bit greasier. I don't mind this. I actually like it a lot. This is just a lavender infused I use it for my mosquito bites, and calming. Gosh, just, rest and calm. It smells delicious. This calendula salve is just a calendula. So when you add the beeswax to it, it changes the consistency. So if you like a lighter, fluffier, you can do that. If you want it harder, this one's hard to see, but this one I like. Well, now I'm covered in salve. My hands might not open. This one's a little bit of a thicker consistency. You can kind of tell my finger doesn't go in as easy, right? And so this is a little thicker. You just do it to your liking. And again, you're not going to mess anything up. So after your oil's infused and you decide to make a salve and you mix it with the, I think it's a cup to a quarter cup. So a cup of oil to a quarter cup of beeswax. It gets firm as it cools. So as soon as it's all cool, you put it in your container that you're going to use and you let it cool and you've got your salve. And this is just easier because it's transportable. So an oil might be harder to take on a plane, might be harder to, but this is just easy to transport. If you keep it, if it gets hot though, it will melt a little. So if you keep it in your car, it could get melt, but it doesn't make it go bad. And the oil will last several months. I mean, I've had salves last me for a year or two. I mean, it's amazing. But they can go bad, right? Because there's no preservatives in anything. So that ends my portion of the demo. I'm excited to hear and see what you all are asking and any questions y'all might have about anything.
Yeah, thank you so much for this amazing presentation. Like, I've learned a lot and I've been studying loosely herbalism. So, thank you so much for introducing us to some new herbs. For those who don't like to use bleach, and some physicians might say that, we get a little bit of bleach in our water when we shower, when we get into the pool, and that is true. But if you would like to have a little bit more control over what you're submerging your body in. Then a sitz bath can be good with some herbs. That's totally up to you. This summit is about providing you with resources so that you can make your decision. So you have bleach baths, and then you have something for herbs. So you can use both. You can use either or. You can use none of it. It's all what resonates with you. Know that. I just wanted to make that clear. Okay. So we're not saying that we're for or against anything. Just please use whatever is comfortable for you. Because everybody's not where I'm necessarily am in my healing journey, or where Sarah is, or where anyone else is who are attendees. So keep that in mind. So we did have a question come in, and it was, can you use tea tree oil, the essential oil, for toenails or directly on your nails? Because I know with some essential oils, if you apply it directly on the skin, it can cause some irritation.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm careful with it. I do tea tree directly on some of my things, but I know already that I'm good. I've used it for a decade. I'm good. So yeah, I mean, if you have a fungus or something that you really need to get, you want to be sure that it's not going to be infected, but you don't want to use, say, alcohol, or absolutely. And with the salve, you don't add this like in the process of the oil making. The oils come in, like the grapeseed oil or the tea tree oil specifically for HS, when you mix the salve oil with the beeswax. So in the actual salve making, you add a few drops, smell it, test it, see if it's enough, right? And then go for it. So in the salve that I'm preparing for you all, it's going to have tea tree in it as well to help with that. So yeah, you can put it on as long as you're careful and test yourself, but it can be irritating to the skin.
Perfect. We have another question. Is the salve safe for open skin? I think that's a good question too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if you have an open wound too, and it feels like it's like the boils, and you'd rather do the poultice, I'd highly recommend the grounded yarrow and the shepherd's purse, and do that poultice on it. And then the honey, as the sitz bath recipe has. Yeah. I've used it for open wounds, not on poison ivy and stuff like that. That's a little bit different, but yeah, I've used it on open wounds. My mom has diabetes, has all kinds of feet issues, dry skin, yes. My father too has eczema and psoriasis. I've used salve on him for years. Yeah. And if you ever have a problem, discontinue use, don't use it anymore. But the likelihood of you having a terrible reaction is not, I mean.
Absolutely. And then, what was I gonna say? Could we also talk about the different oils because some oils, some creams can be they can clog pores. So I know that there are certain oils that are better for the skin rather than others. So like jojoba oil and things of that nature. Could we talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think for your face, the jojobas and the vitamin E's and the apricot oils, I think people are more careful around their face, and how sensitive your skin is. I've never had any issues with olive oil or coconut oil. Yeah, but some are going to be a little bit more clogging pores though. You mean for like would it break out further?
Well, for because with HS we already have issues with the boils, the cysts, and the abscesses, and I know things like, for example, shea butter might not be good to apply on scar tissue just because it might clog the pores of those specific areas. So that's at least what I've been told by my dermatologist. So I just want to clarify some of that, just in case some patients experiment with other oils or other like things like shea butter or cocoa butter or something like that.
Yeah, and those you would use to actually make like more of a whipped cream. So in like natural products, you would use the butters to make like cream. So not so much of the oil. I think the oil is, generally like the olive or the apricots or any of that, you're not using a ton, and it's to relieve the pain. So I would almost like to think about what would be the process of like when a boil comes and then when it's actually healing. It might be good to research the difference between what what would be best remedies, right? For the healing process and the scarring. But vitamin E is really good. You could add vitamin E to this because vitamin E comes in an oil. You could add drops of that, and that would absolutely help with the scarring process. But I would probably stay away from like the heavy shea butters, and because those are going to be used to make like a whipped cream. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Leslie was asking, are there any herbs to consider for pain relief? Sometimes the most painful part can be right before they have a wound open up, which I know is a lot of patients experience.
That's the St. John's. The St. John's is great for the pain. Dry, yeah.
So if you wanted to create just a salve that had St. John's, then you could do that, right?
Yes. Yes. Or a sitz bath or a compress. Make a tea. It's painful. Make a tea, put a washcloth on it, put it on the pain. Yeah. Or get in the bath of just, yeah.
And I'm sure you could use the poultice too, right?
In the St. John's, let me look at that because I understood that it's better. I would want to look that up to be 100% sure. Yeah, because the poultice, I'm used to doing comfrey, the plantain, those types of herbs. I'd want to double check on St. John's wort. And I did notice in the chat too that there was a question as if they were dried or fresh. I mean, these are all dried, and I tend to just use dried.
I know that some were saying that when you use, I've heard before that when you use fresh herbs, that can also cause sometimes like molds and bacteria just because it's water in the herbs, they're not already dried out. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What the pros and cons are for using dried versus fresh herbs in this process?
Yeah, I've just gotten so much more comfortable with the dried because that it's not got anything else in it. We're good. If you pick it fresh, say it's in the morning, it's going to have a lot of the morning dew on it. So if you did do it fresh, I'd like to maybe let it sit for a little bit, pat it dry, and then put the medicine in, but just try to remove moisture. Because also with the oils, it doesn't like water. Oil doesn't like water. They don't blend well. So I try to just be really careful. So with the salves, I just always use dried, but you can totally use fresh. It's really just a preference. And fresh can be hard to get. That means you have to get it yourself. Typically, if you're getting fresh herbs, it's because you've harvested or foraged it yourself. So totally can use it. And the fresh herbs is what you use for the poultices. Is best results in a poultice if you use fresh, blended with water and flour. That makes kind of like a gooey substance. And if it can be kind of weird, especially if you've got to boil in a funny spot. So it's always nice to have help, like, could you put this on me, let it sit there, relax, maybe put some soft music on, put, an eye pillow on if you can, and let it just sit there and suck out, what needs to suck out, or give it the goods, the medicine.
How would you go about using plantains? Would that be dried as well? So we kind of talked about this before we started the summit, which was the plantain herb and the oil. So they were asking about using it, and would that be dried as well? And I think that depends on whether you're using it for a poultice or a salve, correct?
Now, make sure we're talking about plantain. It's the herb plantain, not the plantain. Sometimes we get confused in the food.
Oh, are you talking about the herb, Leslie? Because I know that I thought that when I first heard of plantain, I was like, what you mean, the bananas?
Right, I want to eat them. Yes, right.
Cool.
Yes, right. So if the plantain is, I should know the medicinal botanical name, and I don't, but it's I think it's plantain montana, I think is one of the names for it. Negative, totally thought it was the banana, right? So right. Plantain is this really, depending on the region that you're in, I can't remember, Leslie, where you're at. Right. Okay. So plantain, good. Thank you for asking. Plantain is an herb, a plant. It grows wild everywhere. And if you have a grass, it's likely that you've got clovers, violets, dandelions, and plantain in there. So as long as you're not using pesticides, once you can, identify it, I wish I had some to show you. The longer leaves, they're kind of thick, they're real green, of course. But yeah, that's what we're using in the plantain for the skin stuff. It's beautiful, right? That dandelion and plantain and violet and red clover and all of this stuff is just growing right in our backyards. Don't cut your, and they're also good. The bees love it. So, if you go a few weeks in the spring and don't cut your yard and you're not using pesticides, you might could use, and you're not taking it internally anyways, but you might could use some or grow it in your garden. Some of those herbs though tend to spread. So I like to plant them in pots just by themselves. So they don't spread too much in the rest of the gardens, but yeah, plantain the herb.
Tati was wondering, is the poultice safe to use near the genitals? Their HS is very mild, but the ones that come back are usually in the groin buttock area. I know that sometimes can be like a problem area for a lot of patients.
Yes, it is. Yeah, safe to use in the butt and groin area. You might need some help if you could have, someone help you just applying it, because the poultice it's thick and it's creamy, but it's also plant material. So, you want to, you might need to be on your back and have your feet up to get to that region, or, it might take bending over and have someone, so if you've got some assistance. And if you don't, a mirror could work really good. And then, like I said earlier too, you can apply honey, and then you can also bandage it after.
What I do, Tati, is like I usually put my leg on my bathroom, like my bath. What's the thing called? The ledge of the bath. Or if you're in your bedroom, you could put it on top on your bed. It depending on, because I know sometimes with the boils and the cysts, it can be hard to open your legs, especially if you have them in those areas. But if it's not too difficult, definitely put like a towel down, because like I have concrete in my apartment on the floor, so I could just wipe it up. But if you have carpet, yikes, you want to be careful. So have something to maybe catch the poultice and to make it less messier. I don't know if you have a recommendation, Sarah.
No, I think all the things you said are great. And a sitz bath might be a little bit easier, but I think the poultice is actually is a stronger medicine. That's one of the best ways to get at it. So as long as you can figure out some of those comfortability things, and myself or Michelle are also happy to help. And the poultice recipes that I provided there give a lot more detail, at least how to make it. The application is tricky. My mom had a really terrible, we tried to do some comfrey to help her with, comfrey is it actually can heal bones, but you want to be careful with a comfrey poultice because your bones, if they're not aligned, will not heal correct well. So, you got to be careful. But she had a real terrible shoulder injury, and we couldn't get it on. It was like, it just couldn't, because of her inabilities to sit upright and things. We ended up not able to getting it on well. So it's definitely something to think about logistically.
Absolutely. And, this is a safe space. I just wanted to say, so, if we're sharing this information, it's completely okay. We all have had experiences with HS, and if not, that is okay. Because there are supporters or individuals who have seen HS. And if you're not an individual who has not seen HS, just know that we are creating a space where patients can talk about their experiences in the ways that they need to. So there's no shame coming from my end. And I know that Sarah, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm guessing that there's no shame coming from your side either.
That's totally normal. Yeah. Yeah. And if it drips anywhere, outside of the carpet, but on any other parts of your body, it's not going to hurt anything.
And that's the beautiful part about plant medicine. That's why I wanted to provide this information to you all, is because this is non-toxic. Yes, there are herbs that internally, if you take them, you just need to be careful, just because some herbs you're not able to take them internally. They're only for external use, or some of them you can't use at all, but that comes with education. But the herbs that we're teaching you about today, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, but these are safe to use. And so feel free to do your research. I got a book from Barnes and Noble. I have like 3 different herbalism books, and they all tell me different information, share pictures. Some of them are just words. So just like dig through and see what you can find, because you might be able to find something that we haven't mentioned here that'll be helpful. So always do your own research as well.
Yeah. And the clinical herbalists are really good. That's why I gave you the number for one, is that like, if you have if you have taken medications and you want to be sure that you want to take something internally, talk to a clinical herbalist. They'll even send you all the stuff you need. Or if you need access to the sitz baths or the salves, for example, or herbs, we can help you with that. But they'll check. They have pharmacists that they work with. They can check your herbs and see if there's any contraindicators to things that you might want to take internally. Most teas and stuff are usually chamomiles, or real, they're not going to mess you up. I try to use herbs that are just everyday herbs that we can all use, because we don't want to let our fears get in the way of being able to access relief and medicine.
Absolutely. Esther was asking, are there some herbs with nice fragrances? Because yesterday we were told to stay away from artificial fragrances and they can't stand the smell. Yesterday we were talking to Dr. Bisco, and we were talking about environmental toxins, and artificial fragrance was one of the things that she told us to be mindful of. But herbs are completely different, right? So are there some herbs that you could recommend, maybe like lavender, that have a beautiful smell to them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many. I think we mentioned the rose earlier. The calendula smells good. The chamomile smells good. Lavender, amazing. I've learned to love the smell of this green stuff. I mean, like, let me smell this. I'm going to smell yourself that I made for you. It smells like olive oil. I mean, it doesn't really have much of a smell. To get the smell, though, is where you use the essential oils. So say you love cinnamon. I don't know, you just love cinnamon or frankincense or myrrh, or, ylang-ylang, or I don't know how to say that. I always say it wrong, ylang-ylang. Grapefruit, right? You add those at the end of the process, so it can smell like anything you want it to smell like, really. I like the grapefruit and the tea tree because it actually adds that additional medicinal value of helping to just like kill extra stuff and bacterials and microbes and whatever. But a calendula salve doesn't really smell like much. You smell the oil, really. The medicine's in there. So, but if you were looking to try to get something to smell good, you can use the essential oils. I'm thinking that's not. Just use not a lot. Go light on the essential oil.
Yeah, I was gonna say like a few, maybe like no more than like 3 drops or so, and it depends on how big.
How big? Yeah. So for this and the tea tree, I like the number 7, just magical for me. I like it, 8, 5, whatever. I'll put like 7 drops as I make this, but I'll smell it too, just to be sure. I don't like making my stuff any of my things too fragrant, because I just don't know what people like or what they're allergic to, and I want people to like the product and to use it, and not waste your money. But yeah, you can absolutely rose, calendula, chamomile, and lavender would be the ones I'd work with.
Absolutely. We have another question. What are the best herbs to use in a poultice or salve if you have really sensitive skin in your groin and need to apply it there? Great question.
In the groin? I mean, all the herbs that we mentioned, I don't think are gonna. So for a poultice?
Yeah.
I'm gonna follow up with you, because is it in the chat?
No, it was actually in the Q&A. If whoever asked you this question, because it was anonymous, if you want to message us directly, the panelists, so nobody else can see it, then we could maybe reach out to you directly, if that's what you want. Or if you want to, you can reach out to Gabrielle. Would you mind posting our email address? And you can reach out to us there and ask our question. I'll direct you to Sarah.
So poultice for sensitive skin in the groin area.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the ones that we mentioned are going to be just fine, but I would want to double, triple check.
Mm-hmm.
And I can email you directly.
Yes, absolutely. Perfect.
I just want to, I'd want to double, triple check, because I've never done a chamomile poultice or, because chamomile's soft, soothing. It's not a heavy herb for most people can use it. Yeah, but I want to double check on that.
Do you know of any herbs that are indigenous to South Florida that might be good for healing and skincare? I know that we covered some things. I don't know if some of these herbs might be good to grow in those areas as well. But do you
Yes.
have any advice for that?
Yeah, all the herbs that we've been mentioning. You can grow rose, chamomile, mint, St. John's, calendula, yarrow, gotu-kola, witch hazel trees. I mean, that's used a lot for, the bark is used.
Is there a place that they can get the seeds from that is a sustainable space? Like, because getting them from, for example, Home Depot, they might be, I don't know. But is there a way that we could reach out to your collective, or is there some place that that we could get some seeds to start growing?
Yeah, I've used, there's so many seed companies, so many. And what we do is we get a lot of our plants donated by local herbalists. So they do the starts and then we plant their starts. So you can also go to your local farmer's market or reach out to your local, any of your local herb farms and just be like, hey, do you have any extra plants to grow? Start off slow, because the beautiful thing about herbs is that they're a gift that keeps giving. So all of them are going to come back every year. You're going to plant the chamomile, it'll likely come back. Your tulsis and skullcaps, or whatever you're growing. Now I have a bed that's just for salve, and in that bed it's all the herbs I've mentioned here. Most of them are growing, and they'll grow in South Florida too. We're in a similar climate. And the only difference is your grow season is probably a lot longer than ours, and you have a hotter climate, so you might have more luck with tropicals. So you might be able to do jasmines, hibiscuses, and things like that.
Tati was asking, is there a salve that's better for fading scars, or will this HS salve help with that as well?
For fading scars, like I mentioned earlier, it's like I think we need two salves, one for the process of when the boils come, and then also a process of healing. And it just didn't dawn on me, but I do think that a different one would be good that had some specific scarring, herbs in it, and maybe just all scarring and some vitamin E. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. Thank you so much for everything that you've provided us with today. It has been very thorough, it's been enlightening, and I appreciate your expertise and your knowledge.
Thank you so much. It's great to meet everyone and
Absolutely.
be on this journey with you. It's really a journey. So I'll follow up with anyone with questions, and I'm available via email.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in